Hello. Welcome to the Journey Podcast headquarters. I like to think of this space as my think tank or the incubator for my brilliant ideas. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you a new segment of the podcast, which I'd like to call Fireside Chat with David Radulovich, me, your host. What a lot of people know about me through the many years that I've been competing in this sport and working in this industry, teaching many people how to shoot this game, being guests on podcasts, well, it's all a lie. I have worked very hard over my 23-year career to curate a very specific image that I want you to think about me. Because quite frankly, I'm an asshole. But I decided to open up a little bit and bring you into my own personal life. The whole idea came about as I was scrolling through social media and I saw a social media post by the Dead Pair podcast. They were announcing a new product that they have, coffee. And I thought to myself, of all the things I know about shooting, I know more about coffee. So naturally, I had to buy some. Now, at this point in the introduction to my video, some of you may be thinking, where is he going with this? Well, I'll tell you. Although the personality that I have curated and presented publicly over the years is a farce, the analytically based filter of thought that I navigate through in my explanations, in my interviews, and in my approach to the competitive aspect of the game is not. You see, I've done a lot of research on coffee. I've traveled the world, specifically picked out different blends, and I've taken my scientific and chemical background and injected it into my approach to drinking brown water. What I decided to do was, number one, accept the challenge presented to me by Mr. Jason Rambo of the Dead Pair podcast, which is to publicly share how I enjoy my favorite drink. And in the process of doing so, because of my educational background, I decided that I would use this as an opportunity to allow you to access the knowledge in my head about how to properly drink a cup of coffee. So I have here in front of me a nice little display, if you will, of just some of the travel accessories that I take with me as I go to tournaments all across the world and use these as a way to extract the optimum amount of caffeine out of the beans so that I can properly fuel the brain that I have as I'm out on the course to allow me to access the level of hyper-focused, analytical, sometimes annoying approach and outlook that I take on this simple game. What I'd like to do first is talk to you a little bit about the water. You see, the water that you use to brew your coffee is essential in bringing out the flavor profile of the bean. Tap water, you might as well just drink rainwater. Purified water and distilled water, right out. No thank you. I'll pass. See, these types of water lack the essential minerals and are too pure to fully allow the chemical process of the bonding of the water to the flavor compounds and the caffeine inside of a coffee bean. So at this point in the video, you may be asking, what type of water should I use to brew my own coffee? Well, the preferred type of water is carbon filtered hard water. Why? Because it is rich in the correct minerals and ions required to extract everything that you need out of a coffee bean. What are those distilled minerals that I'm talking about? I'm glad you asked. You see, magnesium chemically bonds to a compound in the coffee called eugenol, which allows for a very sharp, fruity flavor to come forward in the profile of the coffee. The other one that we're looking for is calcium. Now, calcium helps to create a little bit of a rich and creamy viscosity with a very heavy-bodied flavor profile. I would recommend a water high in calcium for that reason for American trap shooters. And lastly, we want a little bit of carbonate in the water because it reduces the acidity in the way that you experience holistically what you are trying to enjoy. We don't like acidic tasting coffee. It doesn't taste expensive. Now, I would just like to add one more thing about the water before we get into a little demonstration of me expertly brewing this coffee for you. It has to do with the temperature of the water. Now, I know some of you may not think this is important, but you need to brew your coffee at a very precise and finely tuned temperature. Why? Again, it has to do with the oxygen in the water. You want to make sure that you don't boil the oxygen out of the water because it will completely, devastatingly ruin the taste. So I've already done the math for you on this Dead Pear Podcast coffee, and I have extracted the caffeine from the beans. I've determined the perfect coffee to water ratio. We like to call that the golden ratio. And I've, through experimentation, arrived at the perfect temperature for this water. Now, experts may say that you want to keep your water somewhere between 195 and 205 degrees. I like to be a little picky, so we're going to set this for 206 degrees. Because while running the analysis on this, I found that in the few seconds that it takes for me to pick up the kettle of water at 206 degrees and allow that water to hit the beans, it decreases by 1 degree. So 206 is perfect. So why don't we go into the next chapter of this bonus episode and brew our Dead Pear Podcast coffee. Okay, so once you have your water at exactly 206 degrees, the next thing that you're going to want to do is weigh out exactly 20 grams of your Dead Pear Podcast coffee. I've already done that right here. So we're going to take that 20 grams of coffee. Why 20 grams, you may ask? Because I already did the math and I said so. And you're going to put it into your hand grinder. Just like that. Now, once it's in your hand grinder, you're going to grind counterclockwise. No, you're not. It's clockwise. Okay, so now that we have the coffee ground, I should add that you want to set your hand grinder to a medium grain grind, approximately 0.5 millimeters in diameter, for the purpose of creating the ideal surface area ratio between the size of the grind and the water. This allows for the perfect extraction of caffeine and flavor from the ground coffee beans at the temperature that we have already selected. We'll take the grounds off. Not bad, Dead Pear Podcast. At this point, what we're going to do is take our AeroPress, take the cap off. Now this you're going to want to have preheated so that you don't preemptively cool the temperature of the water. I'm going to invert my AeroPress like this, and I'm going to dump the coffee beans in. Thank you. So now that we have our inverted AeroPress with the 20 grams of ground beans at a 0.5 millimeter diameter, medium grind, we are going to put that on our scale, zero out the scale, and pour 100 grams of water into the AeroPress. 206 degrees. Perfect. At this point, we're going to want to stir vigorously. The purpose of this is to allow the crema to rise to the top and add 100 grams more of water. Perfect. At this point, you're going to start your timer for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Put your filter on the AeroPress filter and allow the coffee to brew for 1 minute and 30 seconds. This is game time. Now, by the time that we get to the 1 minute and 9 second mark, we are going to want to start our 21 second pre-pour routine. 1 minute, 9 seconds. We're going to flip the AeroPress over. This is important that you do not spill. And press on the AeroPress until you hear air letting out. Now at this moment, you may want to add another 100 grams of water. Beautimous. Now, once you've allowed your coffee to cool to the temperature of your liking, you can enjoy it. Cheers, Dead Pear Podcast. Son of a dog. How am I going to get better than that? The Journey Podcast coffee? Okay, so I'm glad that that's over because that was a painstakingly excruciating process for me. My hair feels like I'm wearing a helmet, but it was fun, and I hope you guys got some laughs out of it. I'm really not an asshole, but I do drink my coffee like that, and I saw the post that Jason had on the Dead Pear Podcast Facebook, and where he was introducing the coffee that they have, and kind of challenging everybody to put something on social media of them enjoying this coffee and talk about how you like to make your coffee. So I figured I have a not super common way of doing it. I'll share it. I know by doing this I'll probably get some of the coffee lovers to comment on there. And yeah, I really do enjoy coffee. So I want to encourage what Jason started, and I want to, tell you guys to go to the Dalton and Deuce website to get yourself some Dead Pear Podcast coffee, and share with me and the Dead Pear Podcast. Post something on social media and show us how you drink your coffee. I'm not really sure how the marketing of this is going to work now that I think I can say that the Journey podcast is fueled by Dead Pear Podcast coffee. So cool. Thank you, guys. I will have the link to purchase this in the description of this video, and I will see you on the Journey podcast.